The committee will come to order. Today's hearing is on the White House Office of Political Affairs in supporting candidates and campaign fundraising and appropriate use of the government office, and there's a question mark there. The Oversight Committee exists to secure two fundamental principles. First, Americans have a right to know that the money Washington takes from them is well spent. And second, Americans deserve an efficient, effective government that works for them. Our duty on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is to protect these rights. Our solemn responsibility is to hold government accountable to taxpayers because taxpayers have a right to know what they get from their government. It's our job to work tirelessly in partnership with citizen watchdogs to deliver the facts to the American people and bring genuine reform to the Federal bureaucracy. This is our mission. Last night, the committee received a deeply disturbing letter from the White House counsel. The counsel declared that as a senior advisor to the President, David Seamus, a witness who had been subpoenaed to testify here today, was, and I quote, immune from congressional compulsion to testify. This is at odds with rulings from our judicial branch about checks and balances. It is directly in conflict with the case known as Myers-Bolton, a lawsuit brought by the Democrats and then Chairman John Conyers when they were in the majority. A Federal judge wrote that senior advisors to the President of the United States are, and I quote, not absolutely immune from congressional process. Oversight of political activities in the White House has frequently been a divisive issue, and it has been an issue this committee has asserted jurisdiction and oversight on a bipartisan basis over the last 4 committee chairmen while I have been a member of the committee. For example, in 2007, former committee chairman Henry Waxman initiated a series of investigations into improper political activities in the Bush administration. During the committee's 2-year investigation, the staff interviewed 18 political appointees, including President Bush's political directors, in other words, the same individual we are not getting today, and received nearly 70,000 pages of documents. And for those who don't know what 70,000 pages of documents look like, it's 14 banker boxes filled with documents. Even the chairman of the Republican National Committee received a subpoena requiring production of emails. The committee's current investigation has looked much different. It has exercised patience for months and gave the White House extensive opportunities to explain concerns through briefings and document productions. On his first run for President, then, Senator Obama campaigned on closing the White House political office. In January 2011, 3 years into his term, the Office of Special Counsel concluded that the White House Office of Political Affairs violated laws, namely the Hatch Act, designed to keep taxpayers from paying for political activities by government workers. The same month, the White House announced the closure of the political office. That office remained closed for almost 3 years. In January 2014, the White House announced the reopening of its political office. The office's new name is Office of Political Strategy and Outreach, or OPSO. In March, the committee sought information about the relaunch of this political office in an effort to continue this committee's legacy of overseeing the White House political office. This request came as the committee learned that 2 members who served in Mr. and President Obama's campaign had violated the Hatch Act. Had violated the Hatch Act by abusing their positions to aid overtly political campaign efforts. In March 2012, United States Labor Secretary Hilda Solis, a sitting member of the President's cabinet, engaged in prohibited activity outlined in the Hatch Act. The Los Angeles Times reported that Secretary Solis had solicited a donation from a subordinate Labor Department employee. The committee has come now to have possession of a voicemail, and I would ask that it be played now.
You have one saved message. Main menu. To listen to your message, press 1. To send a message. First saved message.
Hi, this is Hilda Solis calling. Just calling you off the record here. Wanted to ask you if you could help us get folks organized to come to a fundraiser that we're doing for Organizing for America for Obama campaign on Friday at La Fonda at 6 p.m. Ruben Smith, an attorney, and his staff are helping us put this together. There's a lot of folks that we know that are coming, but wanted to ask you if you might help contribute or get other folks to help out. I would encourage you to call this number, Myra Jimenez, his assistant, at 714. And you can call Ruben Smith yourself, who's a good friend, an attorney, good friend of mine, at 714. And it's for Friday event at La Fonda. Folks got it. We're just trying to raise money to show that we have support here in Los Angeles. Thank you. Bye.
End of message. To delete this message, press 7. To save it in the archives, press 9. To resaved. End of messages.
That recording was the message Secretary Solis left on a phone of a subordinate employee at her department and was the subject of a complaint made to the Office of Special Counsel. Hatch Act violations have been a problem under all administrations. This makes the claim by this administration that they are doing everything right and should be immune from oversight all the more indefensible. It is deeply ironic that an administration claiming to be the most transparent ever has resisted oversight of its political office and offered less cooperation than its predecessors. Today's hearing was intended to be an opportunity for Congress to assess how the administration has tried to address the issues raised by the Office of Special Counsel's 2011 report on political activity. That report found OPA was an inherent violation of Federal law because taxpayer dollars were being used to pay the salaries of staff who conducted political activities. Surprisingly, the White House did not consult with the Office of Special Counsel before reopening OPA, despite the agency's critical role in enforcing the Hatch Act. The American people have a right to know that the tax dollars that have been spent are not spent on political activities of Republicans or Democrats. This committee is obligated to shed light on improper use of taxpayer money for political gain. This committee has an obligation to look into whether it is happening or not. We do not and should not need a smoking gun in order to look into whether or not taxpayer dollars that are being spent properly. An inherent tenet of this committee has always been, if taxpayer dollars are being spent, if the power of the government is being used, then we have jurisdiction. That has not changed and will not change under leaders of either party. Unfortunately, the most key witness, Mr. Simas, who serves as the Director of White House Political Office, has chosen to defy the committee's legal obligation and its subpoena. The panel of witnesses who are here today, I want to thank you for your appearing, particularly Ms. Lerner, who I know had to make significant changes in her otherwise busy schedule to be here. I would never have brought you here unless I thought we were going to have a full and complete hearing. The committee wrote Mr. Simas on July 3, 2014, to invite him to today's hearing. White House counsel Neil Egerton wrote to me on July 10, 2014, stating that the request of Mr. Simas to testify was not appropriate. I then authorized a subpoena for Mr. Simas to appear after staff consultation with the minority. The The subpoena was served on July 11, 2014. The White House accepted service. As one of our witnesses has chosen not to appear, we will be unable to have a full and fair hearing. Nevertheless, we will offer opening statements. And so at this time, I would ask unanimous consent to place the correspondence between the White House and this committee in the record. Without objection, so ordered. Additionally, the committee, oops. Okay. Without objection, the Chair is authorized to declare recess of the committee at any time. And with that, I recognize the Ranking Member, Mr. Cummings, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the past 18 years, I have been deeply honored to serve as a member of the House of Representatives, representing 700,000 people from the great state of Maryland. But at the same time, I've been truly honored on every day of that 18 years to serve on this committee. I also have tremendous respect for this committee and the chief investigative body of the House that it is. For these reasons, I strongly support the authority to issue subpoenas when necessary, to require people to provide information to fulfill our constitutional responsibilities. But I cannot and I will not support the abuse of this very powerful authority when it serves no legitimate purpose and where there is no evidence that a witness did anything wrong. These actions do not enhance our authority as a committee. They undermine it, they degrade it, and they make us weaker. They distract, and they lead to dysfunction. And if you want to be effective and efficient in the things we do, then the last thing we need is distraction and dysfunction. Last Friday, Chairman Issa issued a unilateral subpoena to compel David Simas to testify here today. Mr. Simas is a senior advisor to the President of the United States of America. And everyone on this committee knows the doctrine of separation of powers. As a matter of fact, it was first introduced to me in middle school. We do not simply haul in one of the President's top advisors at will. There must be a valid reason. There must be a predicate. There must be a justification, some evidence that this official engaged in some type of inappropriate activity. That foundation simply does not exist. On Friday, I wrote a letter to the Chairman formally objecting to the subpoena. I noted that he has already issued nearly 100 subpoenas without any debate or vote of this committee. This is more than all three previous chairmen combined in less than half the time. I also noted that these unilateral subpoenas began to spike last month after Speaker Boehner announced that he was taking the Benghazi investigation away from this committee and transferring it to the new Select Committee. For example, the Chairman issued a subpoena to the Secretary of State without even calling to see if he was available to testify. He later withdrew the subpoena. The Chairman also issued a subpoena to IRS Commissioner in an attempt to hold the first public hearing on Lois Lerner's emails. But that failed. and the Committee on Ways and Means went first. And then on Friday, Chairman Issa proposed the latest subpoena. The subpoena was not based on anything Mr. Simas did. It was based on the fact that the White House violated the Hatch Act 6 years ago under the Bush administration. The committee has identified no evidence that Mr. Simas or anyone in his office did anything inappropriate. In my letter, I asked Chairman Issa not to issue the subpoena. If he thought I was wrong, then I asked him to bring it before the committee for a vote. But he ignored my concerns, did not reply to my letter, did not call a committee vote. He just issued the subpoena by himself. These actions directly contradict the pledges made by the chairman during this committee's first meeting 4 years ago in 2011. I shall never forget that meeting. It started off with a prayer by our former chairman, Ed Towns. And I'd now like to play a video clip from that meeting so that we can remember back then. And those who may not have been here, they need to see this. Play the clip, please.
If we cannot come to an agreement, a vote of the committee may very well be the most legitimate way to resolve a difference of opinion between us. I don't see any of those here today. I don't think you're going to like everyone who I asked to come. Quite frankly, and we had this conversation privately in the past, there is a possibility you're going to want somebody subpoenaed, and I may not want it. This happened with my predecessor. We resolved it. It was contentious, it was difficult, and a threat of the full committee was part of the process. Chairman Towns did the right thing, and he did it on his own. And he did it written the way he thought it should be written. He did it to protect the integrity of this body. The subpoenas have borne a lot of fruit. From that lesson that Ed Towns and I have learned together, I expect that if you want a subpoena, I better take it seriously. And if I want a subpoena and you really object, I'm going to take your thoughts on why you object seriously. To be honest, I will ask other members of my committee, am I doing the right thing, and seek their guidance. And by the way, not just former chairman. I will also undoubtedly talk to other members on your side and say, am I nuts? Am I wrong? Is this somehow a subpoena that's outside the mainstream? So I don't intend on simply writing subpoenas endlessly. Having said that, there will be times during recesses in which consultation would be over the phone and a vote would not be practical or even possible. So I do intend and believe that we should maintain the rules as they are, work together, and bear in mind that if this doesn't work, it will be very public, and each of us would pay a price for being unreasonable.
Mr. Chairman, those were your words. Those are your words. They weren't mine. I said something else in that hearing, and I cited an old proverb. And it basically said that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others together. And so that was 4 years ago. When I raised concerns, you did not take them seriously. You did not ask other members if you were nuts or if you were wrong. When I asked for a vote, you ignored my request. Since you've been chairman, you have not held a single vote on even one of your nearly 100 subpoenas. And one of the things that concerns me about this committee and this Congress is every year 2 years when we raise our hands, and we swear to protect the citizens of our country. There's something that underlies that, and that is that we have a duty to preserve this democracy that we inherited when we came upon this earth. So, Mr. Chairman, with the utmost respect for this institution, because this is not about me, this is not about this committee, this is about generations yet unborn, I urge you to change course. This is supposed to be a deliberative body. The members of this committee, and I say it and I'll say it until I die, the members, each one of them, represent 700,000 plus people. 700,000. The members should have the chance to deliberate, especially on matters as serious as compelling the testimony of a senior presidential advisor. It is time for this committee to stop serving as a center stage for political theater and fulfill the responsibilities under the Constitution to conduct responsible oversight. And then the chairman cited the Myers case, and I'm glad he did. But in Myers, when the Bush administration claimed executive privilege to prevent the White House counsel, Harriet Myers, from testifying before the House Judiciary Committee in 2007-2008, the committee had a legitimate investigation into the forced resignations of 7 U.S. attorneys. The D.C. District Court explained, and I quote, "Congress, moreover, is acting pursuant to legitimate use of its investigative authority. Notwithstanding its best efforts, the committee has been unable to discover the underlying causes of the forced terminations of the U.S. attorneys. The committee has legitimate reasons to believe that Ms. Myers' testimony can remedy that deficiency. There is no evidence that the committee is merely seeking to harass Ms. Myers by calling her to testify," end of quote. And finally, in the Myers case, there are some distinguishing factors. Keep in mind, Ms. Myers was no longer in the White House. Number two, remember that there was a complaint to the Office of Special Counsel already. There was a complaint about the firing of the U.S. attorneys. Number three, there had been negotiations, and all parties declared that there was an impasse. Here, only one person declares that there's an impasse, apparently, and that is the chairman. And so I end by saying this is our watch. I end by saying we're better than this. If we want to go far, let's go together. If we want to go fast, go alone. With that, I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. As our witness has chosen not to appear, we are unable to complete the full hearing. The committee stands in recess.